Radhe, could you read that?
Yes, Prabhu. O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who have assumed the form of a boar, all glories to you. The earth, which had become immersed in the Garbhodaka ocean at the bottom of the universe, sits fixed upon the tip of your tusk like a spot upon the moon.
Thank you. So what's the moon and what's the spot?
What is the moon and what is the spot?
Just right? There's an analogy being given here, right? So what is the moon being compared to, and what is the spot being compared to?
The earth is being compared to the sits on the moon.
Sits fixed upon the tip of your tusk like a spot on the moon. Seems to me that the moon is his tusk.
Tusk.
And I mean, that's what it seems to me.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I guess there could be different ways to interpret it. But so the spot is just the moon. The spot is the earth. Okay, so we'll chant this stotram in the tune that Srila Prabhupada used. He did use different tunes, but this is one. See if we can follow it. Okay, I'll say, you say. Vasati dashana shikhare dharani tavalagna Shashini kalanka kalevani magna Keshavadrita Shukararupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare. Okay. Vasati dashana shikhare dharani avalagna Shashini kalanka kaleva imagna Keshavadrita Shukararupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare. Okay. Vasati dashana shikhare dharani tavalagna Shashini kalanka kaleva nimagna Keshavadrita Kararupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare. Everybody. Vasati dashana shikhare dharani tavalagna Shashini kalanka kalevani magna Keshavadrita Shukararupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare. Do one more call and response. Vasati
Dasana
Hare
Shikare
Dharani
Karani
Tavalagna
Tavalagana
Shashini
Shashini
Kalanka
Kalanka Kalani
Kaleva Nimagna
Nimagana
Keshavadita
Keshavadita
Shukararupa
Shukararupa
Jai
Jai
Jagadish
Jagadish
Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare. Last time. Vasati Dashana Shikare Dhorani Tavalagna Shashini Kaleva Magna Keshavadita Shukararupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paribrajak Acharya Ashtotara Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai.
Jai.
ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
Amacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai.
Jai.
Prem se kaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai.
Jai.
Shri Radha Krishna Gopal Gopinath Shyam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai.
Jai.
Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai.
Jai.
Navadip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai.
Jai.
Ganga Mai Ki Jai.
Jai.
Yamuna Mai Ki Jai.
Jai.
Tulsi Devi Ki Jai.
Jai.
Devi Ki Jai.
Jai.
Veta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai.
Jai.
Shri Varaha Dvadashi Ki Jai.
Jai.
Gaur Prem Anande.
Hari Hari Bol.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare
All
Krishna.
glory to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Hari Hari Bol. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutare Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirbhishesh Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, or Lord Hari, who have assumed the form of a boar, all glories to you. The earth, which had become immersed in the Garbhodak ocean at the bottom of the universe, sits fixed upon the tip of your tusk like a spot upon the moon. So which is the spot and which is the moon?
Moon is the whole universe.
Is that right? What do others say?
Mm.
So the the earth sits fixed on the tip upon the tip of your tusk like a spot on the moon. I take it that the tusk is like the moon and the earth is like a spot. That's how I take it. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Tip of your tusk like a spot on the moon. I take it that the tusk. Somebody has to. Yeah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
We are going to read from the Srimad Bhagavatam about the appearance of Lord Varaha. So there's a couple of places where this is described in the third canto, 13th chapter. It's described in a summary form. So we'll read this in this chapter. There's the appearance and birth of Swayambhuva Manu and his wife. What was the name of his wife? Hello? I don't remember. Okay. So somebody will get it. So they were after Lord Brahma had different attempts. There was the 4 Kumaras. They didn't want to propagate, and then Lord Shiva, he went off to perform austerity. So finally, Swayambhuva Manu, Satarupa, I think her name was Satarupa, he begot or he mind manifested Swayambhuva Manu, and then this was at the beginning of the creation, and then they approached him to say, well, what kind of service would you like us to do, being very good children? So then this is where we're taking up on. We'll start at the 13th verse down there, and let's see who's here. Let's see. Mother Shyama Gauri, you're there. Are you able to read? Or are you? No. Mother Shyama, no. Okay. How about?
Sorry, Prabhu, I'm at work.
Oh, okay, no problem. Prananath Prabhu, can you read?
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.
So we're going to read if you could read just the translations, and we're going to read purports for a couple of them, but I'll alert you when we do get to them. Okay.
Okay. Starting text 13.
Yes, this is the activities of Lord Varaha.
Yeah. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Janardana, Lord Krishna, is the form to accept all the results of sacrifice. If he is not satisfied, then one's labor for advancement is futile. He is the ultimate self, and therefore one who does not satisfy him certainly neglects his own interests. Sri Manu said, O all-powerful Lord, O killer of all sins, I shall abide by your order. Now, please let me know my place and that of the living entities born of me. O Master of the demigods, please attempt to lift the earth, which is merged in the great water, because it is the dwelling place for all the living entities. It can be done by your endeavor and by the mercy of the Lord. Sri Maitreya said, thus, seeing the earth merged in the water, Brahma gave his attention for a long time to how it could be lifted. Brahma thought, while I have been engaged in the process of creation, the earth has been inundated by a deluge and has gone down into the depths of the ocean. What can we do who are engaged in this matter of creation? It is best to let the Almighty Lord direct us.
Let's see if we can we click the purport on this verse?
This one?
Yeah. Yeah. No, okay. Okay.
The
Go ahead.
devotees of the Lord, who are all confidential servitors, are sometimes perplexed in the discharge of their respective duties, but they are never discouraged. They have full faith in the Lord, and he paves the way for the smooth progress of the devotee's duty.
So how is that manifest in this particular situation? Somebody could say. We'll go back. Yeah. So that, what Srila Prabhupada said in the purport, how does that translate to what's going on with Lord Brahma here? Anybody? Mother Shobharadhe, go ahead.
I mean, he created the earth, but the earth is now underwater, and he doesn't know how to get the earth out of there.
Yes. So he's perplexed. He doesn't know what to do. So what does he do?
He asks Lord Vishnu to help him.
Yeah. He has faith, and Lord Vishnu is going to say, will help. So it is best to let the Almighty Lord direct us. Let's go. He'll help us. So does it happen sometimes to you and I that we get in that situation? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So anyway, I thought that was okay. Text 18.
O sinless Vidura, all of a sudden, while Brahma was engaged in thinking, a small form of a boar came out of his nostril. The measurement of the creature was not more than the upper portion of a thumb. O descendant of Bharata, while Brahma was observing him, that boar became situated in the sky in a wonderful manifestation as gigantic as a great elephant. Struck with wonder at observing the wonderful boar-like form in the sky, Brahma, with great brahmanas like Marichi, as well as the Kumaras and Manu, began to argue in various ways. Is this some extraordinary entity come in the pretense of a boar? It is very wonderful that he has come from my nose. First of all, this boar was seen no bigger than the tip of a thumb, and within a moment, he was as large as a stone. My mind is perturbed. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu.
Is he?
Yeah. Yes, sorry. Is he the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu? While Brahma was deliberating with his sons, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, roared tumultuously like a great mountain. The omnipotent Supreme Personality of Godhead enlivened Brahma and the other highly elevated Brahmanas by again roaring with his uncommon voice, which echoed in all directions. When the great sages and thinkers who are residents of Janaloka, Tapaloka, and Satyaloka heard the tumultuous voice of Lord Boar, which was the all-auspicious sound of the all-merciful Lord, they chanted auspicious chants from the three Vedas. Playing like an elephant, he entered into the water after roaring again in reply to the Vedic prayers by the great devotees. The Lord is the object of the Vedic prayers, and thus he understood that the devotees' prayers were meant for him. Before entering the water to rescue the earth, Lord Boar flew in the sky, slashing his tail, his hard hairs quivering. His very glance was luminous, and he scattered the clouds in the sky with his hoofs and his glittering white tusks. He was personally the Supreme Lord Vishnu and was therefore transcendental. Yet, because he had the body of a hog, he searched after the earth by smell. His tusks were fearful, and he glanced over the devotee Brahmanas engaged in offering prayers. Thus, he entered the water. Diving into the water like a giant mountain, Lord Boar divided the middle of the ocean, and two high waves appeared as the arms of the ocean, which cried loudly as if praying to the Lord. O Lord of all sacrifices, please do not cut me in two. Kindly give me protection. Lord Boar penetrated the water with his hooves, which were like sharp arrows, and found the limits of the ocean, although it was unlimited. He saw the earth, the resting place for all living beings, lying as it was in the beginning of creation, and he personally lifted it. Lord Boar very easily took the earth on his tusks and got it out of the water. Thus, he appeared very splendid. Then, his anger, glowing like the Sudarshana wheel, he immediately killed the demon Hiranyaksha, although he tried to fight with the Lord. Thereupon, Lord Boar killed the demon within the water, just as a lion kills an elephant. The cheeks and tongue of the Lord became smeared with the blood of the demon, just as an elephant becomes reddish from digging in the purple earth. Then the Lord, playing like an elephant, suspended the earth on the edge of his curved white tusks. He assumed a bluish complexion like that of a tamala tree, and thus the sages, headed by Brahma, could understand him to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead and offered respectful obeisances unto the Lord. All the sages uttered with great respect, "O unconquerable enjoyer of all sacrifices, all glories and all victories unto you. You are moving in your form of the personified Vedas, and in the hair holes of your body, the oceans are submerged. For certain reasons, to uplift the earth, you have now assumed the form of a boar."
And we'll do the purport here.
I don't like this. The Lord can assume any form he likes, and in all circumstances, he is the cause of all causes. Since his form is transcendental, he is always the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as he is in the causal ocean in the form of Mahavishnu. Innumerable universes generate from the holes of his bodily hairs, and thus his transcendental body is the Vedas personified. He is the enjoyer of all sacrifices, and he is the unconquerable Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is never to be misunderstood to be other than the Supreme Lord because of his assuming the form of a boar to lift the earth. That is the clear understanding of sages and great personalities like Brahma and other residents of the higher planetary systems. Hare Krishna. O Lord, O Lord, your form is worshipable by performance of sacrifice, but souls who are simply miscreants are unable to see it. All the Vedic hymns, Gayatri and others, are in the touch of your skin. In your bodily hairs is the kusa grass. In your eyes is the clarified butter. And in your four legs are the four kinds of fruitive activities. O Lord, your tongue is a plate of sacrifice. Your nostril is another plate of sacrifice. In your belly is the eating plate of sacrifice, and another plate of sacrifice is the holes of your ears. In your mouth is the Brahma plate of sacrifice. Your throat is the plate of sacrifice known as Soma, and whatever you chew is known as Agnihotra. Moreover, O Lord, the repetition of your appearance is the desire for all kinds of initiation. Your neck is the place for three desires, and your tusks are the result of initiation and the end of all desires. Your tongue is the prior activities of initiation. Your head is the fire without sacrifice, as well as the fire of worship, and your living forces are the aggregate of all desires. O Lord, your semen is the sacrifice called Soma Yagna. Your growth is the ritualistic performances of the morning. Your skin and touch sensations are the 7 elements of the Agnistoma sacrifice. Your bodily joints are symbols of various other sacrifices performed in 12 days. Therefore, you are the object of all sacrifices called Soma and Asoma, and you are bound by yagnas only. O Lord, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead and are worshipable by universal prayers, Vedic hymns, and sacrificial ingredients. We offer our obeisances unto you. You can be realized by the pure mind, freed from all visible and invisible material contamination. We offer our respectful obeisances to you as the supreme spiritual master of knowledge in devotional service. O lifter of the earth with its mountains, which you have lifted with your tusks, is situated as beautifully as a lotus flower with leaves sustained by an infuriated elephant just coming out of the water. O Lord, as the peaks of great mountains become beautiful when decorated with clouds, your transcendental body has become beautiful because of your lifting the earth on the edge of your tusks. O Lord, for the residential purposes of all inhabitants, both moving and non-moving, this earth is your wife, and you are the Supreme Father. We offer our respectful obeisances unto you, along with Mother Earth, in whom you have invested your own potency, just as an expert sacrificer puts fire in the Arani wood. Who else but you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, could deliver the earth from within the water? It is not very wonderful for you, however, because you acted most wonderfully in the creation of the universe. By your energy, you have created this wonderful cosmic manifestation. O Supreme Lord, undoubtedly, we are inhabitants of the most pious planets, the Jana, Tapas, and Satyalokas. But still, we have been purified by the drops of water sprinkled from your shoulder hairs by the shaking of your body. O Lord, there is no limit to your wonderful activities. Anyone who desires to know the limit of your activities is certainly nonsensical. Everyone in this world is conditioned by the powerful mystic potencies. Please bestow your causeless mercy upon these conditioned souls. The sage Maitreya said, the Lord, being thus worshipped by all the great sages and transcendentalists, touched the earth with his hooves and placed it on the water. In this manner, the personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, the maintainer of all living entities, raised the earth from within the water, and having placed it afloat on the water, he returned to his own abode. If one hears and describes in a devotional service attitude this auspicious narration of Lord Bore, which is worthy of description, the Lord, who is within the heart of everyone, is very pleased.
Let's check the purport of this. Did you do that in a devotional attitude, Prananath Prabhu?
While reading this particular verse, I became little conscious. Prabhu.
Okay. So here's the purport. Go ahead. Hello?
In his various incarnations, the Lord appears, acts, and leaves behind him a narrative history which is as transcendental as he himself. Every one of us is fond of hearing some wonderful narration, but most stories are neither auspicious nor worth hearing because they are of the inferior quality of material nature. Every living entity is of superior quality, spirit soul, and nothing material can be auspicious for him. Intelligent persons should therefore hear personally and cause others to hear the descriptive narrations of the Lord's activities, for that will destroy the pangs of material existence. Out of his causeless mercy only, the Lord comes to this earth and leaves behind his merciful activities so that the devotees may derive transcendental benefit.
Lord Varaha ki
Jai.
jai. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Om Gyanati Mirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurin Militam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Nama Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitang Jaina Bhutale Shayam Rupagata Maikyam Dadati Shapandantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Before speaking, I'd like to ask blessings and permission from all devotees, but particularly those who are senior by age or by advancement in Krishna consciousness. So this appearance of Lord Varaha, Srila Prabhupada spoke a couple of times. We can find it on the Veda base, and just a few points about Lord Varaha's appearance. He also wrote some directions and specifics about Lord Varaha in letters that he sent to the artists. So I thought I'd cite those. He said that he mentioned that there's 2 boar incarnations. You know this. One appeared at the beginning of the Swayambhuva Manu, and the other appeared at the beginning at Chakshusha Manu. Chakshusha Manu. So we're Vaivaswata Manu. So this is many, many years ago. So one of them was white, Shveta Varaha. Shveta Varaha. That was the first Varaha. And the most recent Varaha was not white, but reddish in the Chakshusha Manu. Because in between the Manus, according to Srila Jiva Goswami, there's a partial devastation. You know this in the universe. Lord Brahma takes a nap, and the lower planetary systems get merged in the Garbhodak Ocean, and the Earth there is situated there during that time also in the Garbhodak Ocean. But in this case, what happened was the Earth not only was on the surface of the Garbhodak Ocean, but went way down into the depths of the Garbhodak Ocean, so that Lord Varaha had to rescue that Earth. As you probably know, you've probably seen pigs or hogs, and what do they like to do? They like to, have you seen, they get into mud. They like to get into mud and they wallow in the mud and they look like they're enjoying, isn't it? Have you seen?
Yes.
So actually, Srila Prabhupada said there's two kinds of hogs or Varaha, two kinds. The forest Varaha and the city Varaha. The city Varaha is called Bid Varaha. You know this? Bid Varaha. So of the two, the Bid Varaha is lower class because they eat garbage and stool. So although Lord Varaha is never hoggish in the material sense, but of the two kinds of Varaha, he was not a Bid Varaha. He was a forest boar. But so then Srila Prabhupada gives the example when he was speaking about the appearance on the appearance day of Lord Varaha. He gave the example. He said he quoted the verse, Ramadi Murtishu Kala Niyamena Tishtan Nana Vataramakaro Bhuvaneshu Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Parama Pumanyo Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So he said that Lord Krishna, even though he takes various incarnations and forms, in fact, he comes in every species of life, he mentions. So as incarnations. So we know he appears sometimes. What are some of the species that you're aware of that he appears in?
Matsya.
Shashi. What's that?
Matsya, fish, kurma.
Fish. Yeah, fish, kurma, the tortoise. Any others? And there's lots of species. You know, there's Shatada Navalakani, 900,000 species in the aquatics. Yeah. So he appears, he appears as the horse. What's that? Hayagriva, right? Hayagriva. And sometimes he appears fully himself, or sometimes he empowers his devotee. He can appear as a monkey, a Vanara. Vanara, that's Hanuman. He empowered person. He appears as a half lion, half man. I don't know if he appears, but we must know he appears as a butterfly sometimes. We don't know. We don't have details of that. But and here he's appearing as this boar. So Srila Prabhupada says, even though he appears as a hog, he never becomes hoggish. And then he gave the example that that there was a famous prime minister in England by name Lord Gladstone back in the late 19th century, I believe. So one important person came to see Lord Gladstone in his office, and the secretary stopped him before coming in. And he said, no, he's very busy now, so you'll have to wait. So the man was waiting in the waiting room for over an hour, and he became a little bit impatient and curious. So he walked over to the Gladstone's office and he peeked in. And what did he see? He saw Lord Gladstone, and his grandson was on his back. And the grandson was egging him on like you do when you ride a horse. And they were having fun. So Srila Prabhupada gives the example that Lord Gladstone, he's not a horse, but he accepted that position for enjoyment with his son, who is like, or his grandson, like his devotee. So that in a similar fashion, Lord Varaha, he accepts different positions for the pleasure of his devotees, but he never actually becomes, the boar or the horse, or becomes in a material sense. He gives this example. Lord Varaha. Then he said, he said in a letter to Mother Jadharani, he said, yes, Varaha is very beautiful. He's generally, the boar is depicted, Varaha is depicted as half human and half boar. But in the Bhagavatam, it is stated that he is full boar. The first, you can make the first two legs as two hands, and the rear legs and make it rear legs as legs, and make it as beautiful as possible. Lord Varaha. So when Lord Varaha appeared, where did he appear from?
Nostril of Brahma.
Yeah, the nostril. And what size was he?
Very small.
So half of the thumb.
The size of a thumb, right? And then, I mean, Brahma's nose might be quite large, but anyway, he appeared as the size of a thumb, and then he expanded himself to a gigantic form, like, bigger than an elephant. And you might think, wow, that's pretty amazing. And it is amazing. So Srila Prabhupada compared that to the Hare Krishna movement, how it'll start out very small, but gradually become big and spread all over the world that way, just like Lord Varaha started small, the size of a thumb, but became gigantic. Srila Prabhupada made that prediction. And it's interesting to note that God is very flexible. He's very, very, liberally adjustable, because he can be both small, the size of a thumb, and gigantic at the same time. Anoraniyam mahato mahiyan. So he's by his breathing, innumerable universes are coming. Universes are huge, gigantic, whereas this one Earth is a spot. And at the same time, he enters the heart of every living entity, within the atom and in between the atom. So at the same time, he's the smaller than the smallest and bigger than the biggest, which is the universe. And Lord Varaha's activities remind us of that. So he was gigantic, just like he was considered like an elephant. And you can imagine he was roaming in the sky, and then he was flicking his tail just like an animal does, right? Because he knew how to do that. A gigantic form. And then when he went down to get the earth, the Garbhodak ocean, waves were created. You can just imagine that scene. So the question might be, were there living beings on the earth when it went into the ocean? What do you say? What do you say?
Can you repeat the question, Prabhuji?
Yeah. So the earth went to the Garbhodak ocean and then sunk to the bottom. So were there living entities on the earth that got drowned that way?
I think
Yes.
Purport was saying that the earth was meant for living beings. So I was wondering about that.
Yeah. So in one place, Srila Prabhupada, we read, he said that this was at the, after the earth was there already in the waters of devastation. So the devastation had already occurred between the Manus. There's always a partial devastation. So it's not mentioned directly, but it's certainly likely that the earth had already been saved, the devastation had occurred. So there were not living entities there anymore before the next creation. So every between each Manu, Lord Brahma has to create a little bit from the lower planetary systems, and then between between days, then he again creates every single day in the morning. This is questions and comments about Lord Varaha or this pastime. Acharya Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thanks for the ecstatic class. I have a question. I've always been really fascinated by this idea, and it came out a little bit in some of the verses you read about Lord Varaha being very closely linked with the process of yajna. And more than other avatars, it seems like he seems to be linked with that process. And I've been fascinated by it, but I don't really understand it. And I was wondering if you had any thoughts on it. What is it particularly about Lord Varaha that does that, or why he's explained like that? Do you have any thoughts on that?
That is a great question, Acharya Prabhu. And I don't have any information. That's a good question. We'll have to do some research on that. Maybe we can do it and we can let the devotees know. What do you think?
If I have time, I'll try to look into it.
Yeah, it's a great
It's
question.
always fascinated me, but I never, beyond that, I had no real understanding.
Yeah, me either. We're in the same boat. Thank you. Thank you for the question. Any other questions, comments?
Prabhu, what is that Soma and Asoma?
You know, Somaras.
Soma.
There's some plant that they make a drink from. It's especially nourished by the moon, so that's why they call it Somaras. And it's supposedly by drinking the Somaras and offering it, then people's lives duration is increased. Some people on the Earth planet think, oh, Somaras beverage, that's like alcohol, wine, but it's not.
But what is that Asoma?
If you look, I investigated that one time, and there's lots of different opinions about what that plant is.
Mm.
So, and I don't know if Srila Prabhupada has ever commented specifically about, about what the species exactly is. But it used to be used for sacrifice, and they would, especially for those who are interested in being elevated to the heavenly planets. And also the demigods are said to drink Somaras, and so that they would increase the duration of life, because they're also worried that even though they have such long lives, they're not eternal. And if you just like, have you been to Mayapur?
Yeah.
So if you go to Mayapur and you walk down Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Road, they have places where they take the sap of the date tree. And what's that called?
Yeah. I know
What's
that.
that called? Anyway, they take the sap of the date tree and then they boil it. They boil it and they make date sugar. But if you go at a certain time of the morning, then they leave some aside and it begins to ferment.
Yeah.
And then the people like that because it's fermented.
Is that dal?
What's it called?
Dal? Is that dal ras?
Dal. I think
Date
they put
ras, yeah.
pots at the top of it. Yeah.
How do you say date in Bengali? Date.
Date is khejur.
Kejur,
That's
yeah.
good. That is not.
They have a different name for it. Yeah, I forget what it is.
Yeah.
So similarly with the Somaras, you make the Somaras. So if you let it sit around, it starts to ferment, and then people think, oh, that's. But no, it was not fermented. But that's the Somaras they used in sacrifice. So there's a lot of there's a difference of opinion, but we don't use the Somaras for our in devotional service because we're not interested in getting a longer material life.
But what is that ras they got? That is also called Somaras, no? When Earth they did the churning.
Churning.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's the heavenly thing, sure.
Oh.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Just,
So
thinking, Prabhu, usually the Falashruti is something that we all are looking for, but this one is really nice. It says he is very pleased. If we read this in devotional mode,
yes.
pleased. I don't think we see that usually. Usually it is you read this, you will get this.
Yes. That's why I wanted to continue to this verse. It's a very nice verse.
Yeah.
So
Hare Krishna. Hare
yes,
Krishna. I have a question. I think Varaha and Bhumi had son. They had son.
Earth and
is
Varaha?
that
Earth and
Bhumi,
Varaha
yeah, Earth and Varaha had
had
son.
and what was the son's name?
I wanted to know. That's why.
It may be Bhaumasur.
Yes, Bhaumasur. I remember now. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
So it's Srila Prabhupada wrote, that there's clouds in the sky, but ordinarily you don't think of outer space there being clouds. And then before the Lord Varaha killed Hiranyaksha, there was blood and pus raining from the sky. So, and then you wonder, well, Varaha's out there in outer space. How is he breathing, right? How is he breathing? You got to have breathing. But Srila Prabhupada answered that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and he can arrange everything. So not to worry about that. He wrote that to Madhusudana. Okay. So do we have it's getting a little late. I don't guess we go ahead.
I should have said earth, and I forgot. This is a word he lifted. I'm sorry.
It's all right. I was hoping we would read a little bit from Caitanya Caritamrita, but it's 8:42 already. Maybe we can do a couple of verses. I'm very keen on getting to Lord Chaitanya's birth by Gaur Purnima. So is it okay? A few minutes? 5 minutes?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, there. Okay, good.
কেহ তো আচার্য আজ্ঞায় কেহ তো স্বতন্ত্র সমত কল্পনা করে দৈব পরতন্ত্র.
Some of the disciples strictly accepted the orders of the Acharya, and others deviated, independently concocting their own opinions under the spell of Daivi Maya. Purport. This verse describes the beginning of a schism. When disciples do not stick to the principle of accepting the order of their spiritual master, immediately there are two opinions. Any opinion different from the opinion of the spiritual master is useless. The one cannot infiltrate materially concocted ideas into spiritual advancement. That is deviation. There is no scope for adjusting spiritual advancement to material ideas. So this is a very important point. Devotees had various ideas and they would bring them before Srila Prabhupada to get his assessment of the situation. And we can read and study how Srila Prabhupada responded to different ideas and thoughts about how to spread Krishna consciousness. Generally, he recommended to stick to the basic principles of following the 4 regulative principles, chanting 16 rounds, preaching the message of Bhagavad Gita, holding kirtan, and distributing prasadam as the prime methods for spreading Krishna consciousness. Text 10.
আচার্যের মত যেই সেই মত সার, তার আজ্ঞা লঙ্ঘি চলে সেই তো অসার.
The order of the spiritual master is the active principle in spiritual life. Anyone who disobeys the order of the spiritual master immediately becomes useless. Purport. Here is the opinion of Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Persons who strictly follow the orders of the spiritual master are useful in executing the will of the Supreme, whereas persons who deviate from the strict order of the spiritual master are useless.
অসারের নামে ইহা নাহি প্রয়োজন, ভেদ জানিবারে করি একত্র গণন.
There is no need to know those who are useless. I have mentioned them only to distinguish them from the useful devotees.
ধান্য রাশি মাপে জইছে পাতনা সহিতে পশ্চাতে পাতনা উড়ায়া সংস্কার করিতে.
Paddy is mixed with straw at first, and one must fan it to separate the paddy from the straw. What is paddy?
Rice.
Okay, rice paddy, plain the real rice. Okay, the grains of rice you're talking. Would they have the cover? They still have their husk on them.
I guess.
Okay. Purport. This example given by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is very appropriate. In the case of the Gaudiya Mat members, one can apply a similar process. There are many disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, but to judge who is actually his disciple, to divide the useful from the useless, one must measure the activities of such disciples in executing the will of the spiritual master. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur tried his best to spread the cult of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu to countries outside India. When he was present, he patronized the disciples to go outside India to preach the cult of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. But they were unsuccessful because within their minds, they were not actually serious about preaching his cult in foreign countries. They simply wanted to take credit for having gone to foreign lands and utilize this recognition in India by advertising themselves as repatriated preachers. Many Shamis have adopted this hypocritical means of preaching for the last 80 years or more. But no one could preach the real cult of Krishna consciousness all over the world. They merely came back to India falsely advertising that they had converted all the foreigners to the ideas of Vedanta or Krishna consciousness, and then they collected funds in India and lived satisfied lives of material comfort. As one fans paddy to separate the real paddy from useless straw, by accepting the criterion recommended by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, one can very easily understand who is a genuine world preacher and who is useless. Strong words. When Srila Prabhupada says, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur patronized, that means in many ways, but he paid for the preachers in London. He gave them money regularly to preach, but nothing much came of it at all. And sometimes it's said that Srila Prabhupada, well, it was his proclivity to come and talk with the Westerners who, there's kind of an intimation or an insinuation that somehow Prabhupada was more materialistic by being able to mix with the Westerners, and so with those who stayed in India were more pure. That's sometimes insinuated, but actually the fact is that Srila Prabhupada instructed not just Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur instructed not only Srila Prabhupada, but every single one of his disciples. He wanted them to go and preach in the foreign lands, but nobody did it. Shashi Shekhar Prabhu.
So this last statement here, by accepting the criterion recommended by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, one can very easily understand who is genuine world preacher and who is useless. So specific criterion that Srila Prabhupada is referring to is that they're following the orders of their spiritual master.
Yes.
So, okay.
And that specific, the very one very strong order was to preach Krishna consciousness outside of India. Does that make sense?
So yes. Okay. So then could we look to modern Vaishnav society and consider that there's the possibility or potential for this same example that's being given by Srila Prabhupada, or I guess Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in these verses, could be taking place in Vaishnav society as well today as it was then. So we may want, or so we should consider that and also have a discriminative kind of mentality towards things that they're presented as Krishna consciousness. I guess, the question is, how should we as neophytes look to criticize what we see or discriminate against what we see as being presented as Krishna consciousness in modern times?
This was modern times.
Yeah, exactly. That's modern times. But so if this was happening, these were the standard of devotional service that these devotees were kind of connected to seems to be, I don't want to say higher than it is today, but certainly like when Srila Prabhupada took some considerations for the Western people. But I mean, if there was deviations happening around the time when Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was writing this, then certainly there could potentially be deviations happening now that we would want to be aware of or conscious of, or so that we don't end up in some kind of useless, as it's put here, direction.
Yes, it's very important, as Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami and Srila Prabhupada is citing, to really consider and stick closely to the order of the spiritual master, not to invent things. Of course, there might be some leeway in different situations, but any adjustments should be very carefully guarded and be very cautious to change anything. Very, very cautious. Generally, Srila Prabhupada emphasized sticking to a certain program, so Krishnadas Kaviraj is encouraging that very strongly. Srila Prabhupada and the purport is encouraging that strongly. So we should also, as far as possible, try to follow that as well. Do we want? How do we? If we see, we think there's some deviation in something. Well, one might talk to or express that opinion in a humble way, if the opinion is requested, perhaps. It depends on person's situation. Yeah. Mother Sita has her hand up.
Yes,
I guess,
Hare
yes.
Krishna Prabhu, sorry. So yesterday I was talking to the kids, and it's they were talking about something, and they're like, how is it, that we can, Krishna had long hair, we can have, and he had it open all the time, so we can do that too. And I'm like, okay, you shouldn't imitate Krishna. Nobody can imitate Krishna or Guru. We should really follow their instruction. And I remember hearing this from you, and that's what I quoted to them. And he said, and then they're like, well, what do you mean by his instruction? I'm like, if he has said something to you, if you find it somewhere written, that's the instruction you follow, but you don't imitate because he was doing something, then you're going to do something. You can't imitate Guru or Krishna. So I said that based on you. When they asked, where is that written? I'm like, I don't know. So is there a reference to that?
Yes. There's when Lord Shiva was there was the churning of the ocean of milk, and many things were produced. Okay, thank you. Oh, I didn't know so late. Okay, so many things were produced. The moon was produced, the different things, and one thing that was produced was poison. So that poison was hala was very strong. So what the demigods were worried. So what happened was Lord Shiva drank the poison, and that made his throat dark. Nilkant, right? Nilkant. So Srila Prabhupada, this is in the 8th canto. So Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport that one can follow the orders of the great personalities, but don't imitate them, because you can imitate. You want to drink poison like Lord Shiva? Yeah.
Do
And
you
so
know where that is?
8th canto, 8th canto, the churning of the ocean of milk.
Okay, I will look.
And so Prabhupada in the purport, he also says that there's people who like to imitate Lord Shiva who might smoke ganja, right? So, Lord Shiva smokes ganja. Well, at least that's people say that. But
Yeah.
we don't imitate. We follow their instruction. That's
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Just following up on what Sashi Shekhar Prabhu was saying, what I think is it requires a lot of study and a lot of introspection when we are trying to figure out. When these purports were written in the West, Krishna conscious was almost non-existent, but now it is different. There is a lot of Krishna consciousness, not enough, but still a lot more than there was. So the methods have to change a little bit. Or
Who says that?
But
Who says that?
No, I'm just saying, I'm just trying to, but the instructions given by Prabhupada still have to be maintained. So when we make decisions, we have to give it a lot of study, understand it, why he said, what the instruction was. Just not be frivolous, not just superficially say, Prabhupada said this, so let's do this and that's that. We have to understand where the instruction is coming from, what it means, and then apply it accordingly. We always use the time, place, circumstance excuse, time, place, circumstance, and that will justify whatever we do. But that time, place, and circumstance has to be applied very carefully and with a lot of thought.
Yes, first you have to see what Prabhupada said about certain things.
Yeah, so it's not just a matter of reading it, and it takes, at least for me, I'm noticing it takes a lot of time, and so that is why it is very important to listen to people who might have understood it a lot more than I have, not might have understood it more than I have. And
I mean, that's one of the reasons we read from Srila Prabhupada's activities from all these books for all these years, because these things aren't new. The questions aren't new. They're all the same questions happen, in different places, different times, and how Srila Prabhupada addressed them and is pretty consistent in general, pretty consistent. So to study how Srila Prabhupada did things, I mean, there's the instructions might be there in the Caitanya Caritamrita Bhagavad Gita, but how they were applied to the Krishna consciousness movement, we get direct example or illustration there. It's so great. We have the opportunity for that, to study that. And you said that when Prabhupada wrote these purports, that the Krishna consciousness movement wasn't very, well, actually these purports were written about 1974. And the Krishna consciousness movement was pretty strong at that time in the West, very strong, actually. So I would take exception to that point, but not the rest of your points were very good. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. But I think that purport was Krishnadas Kaviraj saying. But
I see.
I do get your point. I do understand what you are saying. And that was my only thing is we have to be careful. I need to understand how much do I know. A lot of times we don't know what we don't know, and we blurt out things. And so we have to be very, very, very careful.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
On that note, this evening at 6:30, there is going to be a question and answer session about the Krishna House program that Philadelphia is about to launch. His Grace Kalakanta Prabhu is going to be facilitating, I think. So if you have questions about Krishna House, please join this same Zoom channel at 6:30.
Thank you. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripasindhibhyo patitanam pavanibhyo vaishnavibhyo namaha.
Hare Krishna.